Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our latest Autism Live event. I am delighted to welcome Ross Parker with us this afternoon. Ross is one of our community advisors. Welcome, Ross. You're reasonably new to our community team. I believe you started in October, was that?
October, yep.
Yep. So Ross is one of our newer community advisors that supports our advice line. So today we're here to kind of talk about understanding autism and how we kind of move beyond understanding and acceptance and recognizing individual identity within that. So Ross, as you and I know, sort of understanding autism is probably one of our, I suppose, highest kind of inquiry types that we have on the advice line. What are the type of things that people are sort of coming forward to talk to us about?
We get so many different inquiries to our advice line. It's really quite interesting, from someone looking for a diagnosis to someone looking for support to we get quite a few, as you were saying, just looking for autism information. And it's great to see how interested people are. And that ranges from, I'm a grandparent, my 4-year-old grandson's been diagnosed, can you give me any advice, to I work from a big multinational company and we want to use Scottish Autism to try and form links to help support our clients. And it's really interesting, and it's from such a wide range of people, and it's really fascinating to see all the different people inquiring.
And I think it's really interesting you say that kind of diversity of the types of people who are coming forward. You mentioned there, like, kind of families who perhaps will have kind of recently maybe gone through that kind of diagnostic process, or maybe a member of their family is self-identifying as being autistic, and there's lots and lots of sort of different bits of information out there, isn't there? And it can be difficult for families to kind of navigate their way through that and find either bits that mean something to them or are relevant to them. So, you know, I can imagine it's kind of just unpicking things with people and just giving them a space to kind of have that conversation.
Yes, I mean, that's it. You can search online all you like and you will find information, but it's good that families have the confidence to get in touch with us, and we can work with them to find support in their area that's specific to them, that meets their needs, and can decipher some of the jargon that can sometimes go about. The way I term it with some of the people that inquire is, we're in an autism bubble, but they aren't. So we need to kind of help them decipher what's out there and what's useful to them.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of putting it as well. And you mentioned there around kind of organizations and businesses as well, kind of, you know, looking to sort of navigate their way into how they attract kind of autistic talent into their businesses and into their organizations, and how they sort of I suppose become more aware of the needs of the autistic and autism community in relation to whether or not they're a provider of services, or, you know, a commercial entity, or whatever it might be. And you know, that can be a kind of difficult kind of process for people to kind of navigate their way through, can't it?
It can, yes.
So yeah, we're already getting lots of comments and questions.
Oh my.
You'll be glad to know. So good afternoon, Jen. Jen's just put there, she loves working for Scottish Autism. Jen, we love working with you.
So do we, Jen.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. We've got a kind of comment here from Sally Ann, and she is asking around PDA, and she's talking there that she's on a pathway with her daughter, and she feels she kind of fits that kind of criteria for a PDA assessment. Is that, again, something that we kind of hear from people on the advice line, in terms of you know, them kind of identifying different areas of support they might need?
Yes, I mean, we get all sorts of things from all sorts of ages and all sorts of levels, with people saying, you know, I think there's autism, there might be PD as well, there might be some other co-occurring condition, or we get some people saying someone in my family was diagnosed and it's now making sense to me that I might be autistic as well.
Okay, so there's a lot of that. And I think it's about, people having access to the right information, isn't it? And being able to have that kind of open dialogue with diagnostic teams around what's actually happening within that family unit, and what support and sort of assessment pathways they need to be made available to them. So I've got a question here from Peter, and he's saying, with a recent late diagnosis, I was wondering whether ADHD may have been overlooked. Is diagnosis for these matters for a GP or available privately? And Ross, this is quite, I know we as a team have spoken about this kind of intersectionality between autism and ADHD, and the kind of developmental aspects associated with that. And, we've talked to people who have been able to access kind of both types, both forms of diagnosis, and then others who have maybe struggled. So, in terms of ADHD diagnosis in Scotland, what information do we have around that?
I mean, we can't diagnose it, obviously, but we will always, advise people that very often autism has a co-occurring condition, and that is sometimes ADHD. And we will always advise you to investigate a condition you may have, and would always work with partner organisations to get anybody the support that they need and point people in the right direction.
Yeah, it's that collaborative aspect of it.
Absolutely.
It's that kind of reaching out through networks. How can we utilise our networks to support that? And I think, it's, and sort of going back to Peter's question here, whether it's a matter for your GP. Yes, Peter, I mean, you can go back to your GP and request a diagnostic pathway to an ADHD specialist diagnostician. There are some organisations nationally across Scotland who do offer private diagnosis, and if you want to get in contact with us directly and let us know whereabouts you are, we can have a look through our networks and provide advice that's more specific to the local authority or the local area that you're in. So Peter, do get in touch with us, and I know our colleagues behind the scenes will pop up details of how to get in contact with the advice line, and the various ways that you can get in contact with us. I am just picking up a question here from Sarah, and she has asked, how long should an SDS package take from start to finish? I've been waiting for 2 years and still haven't been completed. So Sarah, again, it'd be really useful to understand a little bit more background to that one, and indeed which local authority you're in. So please do get in touch with the advice line, or if easier, what you can do is, if you pop us a private message with your contact details, I can ask one of the community team to get in touch with you directly, so that we can support you effectively in relation to your local authority, because there's some diversity there in terms of what's available in different areas. So Sarah, hopefully that kind of answers that question for you, and we can do that in more detail. So Ross, going back to the kind of focus of this afternoon around sort of acceptance and identity, you yourself have through our team really kindly offered insight into what that looks like. And I suppose the question is, what should we be doing in terms of raising understanding and going beyond acceptance? Autism Awareness Month is coming up in April, and there's various different kind of opinions and thoughts around that, both within the autism and professional communities. But, when we're thinking about where should we be going next in terms of autism in Scotland, what's your kind of feeling on it? Where should we be going, in terms of moving beyond that kind of acceptance?
I mean, my thought is autism's for life, not just for April. And yeah, I mean, I think we need to, as Scottish Autism, as other autism organisations, as local authorities, we all need to work together to make Scotland, and with the government, of course, to make Scotland as good a place for autistic people as it can be. We are talking at the absolute minimum 1 in 100 people. Yeah. So it's not a small condition. There are quite a number of the Scottish population that are autistic. So we should be working with the Autistic Voice, with charities, with the government to find training opportunities or education opportunities or support opportunities to just make Scotland a true world leader for autism. And I think that's a very much an achievable goal.
I think that bit that element there on that, it's Autistic Voice, isn't it? It's actually let's listen. Let's listen to what the autistic community and need from organisations like ourselves and from every citizen in Scotland, in terms of making Scotland a truly inclusive place for autistic people and their families. And we're hearing lots and lots of different bits of information, aren't we, through the advice line, in terms of what people's thoughts and feelings are around that. But I think it was really, really key there, the kind of bit that you put out, the fact that it's creating those spaces for listening, isn't it? And let's educate each other. Let's have positive dialogue. Let's have conversation around what it looks like going forward. Yeah. I'm just again going back to our audience here. So we have Susan here, who has she has 2 children awaiting assessment, and her husband is also awaiting assessment. I feel as a family we are drowning whilst we wait, as no support suggested by school or doctors, etc. She says they're based in Lanarkshire and have been on the waiting list for over a year. And she's asking what has been done to lessen the wait for diagnosis, what help is there for us now, and why families are not given details of local support upon referral. And I think, Susan, it sounds like you and your family are on a quite a significant journey there, and certainly one of the sort of bits of work that we're trying to do is make sure people have information, isn't it, Ross, and that they can get access to meaningful information. Diagnostic pathways are under pressure at the moment, aren't they, in terms of the impact of COVID and things like that. And we hear that quite a bit, don't we, through the advice line. So what support is available to people, sort of that pre-diagnosis that we're aware of?
I mean, firstly, that's why we always like to know your local authority, because then we can provide you the support that you need. And if you get in touch with the advice line, we will be able to provide that to you. And yeah, I mean, support, I mean, it's more than acceptable to self-identify as autistic. And I think that's a major development for people going through the process, because you then can access some support that you need, because you're still autistic, whether you've got the diagnosis or not. It just makes it official. So
good way.
By all means, get in touch with us or look for support for self-identifying as autistic, because you're entitled to the support, whether you've got the bit of paper or not.
And in terms of, because Susan's mentioning here around schools, so We've worked in the past quite closely with Children in Scotland, and obviously they have the Inquire helpline, which provides advice and support around what you're entitled to, rights and what you can reasonably ask of a school. So that's probably a kind of good place to also contact Susan. They're great individuals that work on that kind of helpline. And again, I think you can contact them via email as well. And they have lots and lots of great advice in terms of what you're entitled to, and can have those conversations with you in terms of support. Just picking up also a question here from Sarah around sort of visits. She's saying there she went on holiday, and unfortunately her daughter wasn't able to access any of the activities that were available, just because for various sensory and accessibility needs. And she's just really reflecting that she was surprised that there wasn't any kind of specific activities or groups that were maybe done with smaller numbers. And there was a sensory room, but it was fully booked, so wasn't able to use it. And I think that's one of the key kind of areas that we're looking to kind of, you talked about that education piece, aren't you, around the fact that it's about us being able to have those conversations about what do people need, what do people want, so that they can enjoy their experiences and do have equal access to things, isn't it? And we do hear quite a bit from different organisations that want to seek advice and things like that through the advice side, don't we, Ross?
We do, yes, and that's very encouraging.
Yeah, so
that there's so many different organisations wanting to make their services or their activities autism friendly.
Yeah, and it's just, I suppose it's that kind of, again, let's educate each other, let's have conversations, let's let's engage positively with everybody, and think about, right, what does it look like, and how can we move beyond to say, I'm really sorry about that experience, and having a sensory room and it's fully booked. But I think that indicates just how much of a need there was there as well, and the fact that that sensory space was fully booked. That there obviously was a great need at that particular time for spaces where people can go and just take some time away and do what they need to do to support themselves in those sorts of circumstances, isn't it? I think it's quite
absolutely, yep,
indicative that was shut there. I'm just picking up from Caroline Lynch, and she's saying that she's recommended Reach Lanarkshire as a charity in Lanarkshire that support families with children with autism. So hopefully that's really useful information for people who are on the call today. So in terms of what should we be doing? What's the kind of next step in terms of understanding? What would you like to see, Ross, in terms of us moving beyond that?
And there's always got to be education. There's always got to be understanding. I think we've got to move beyond the autism awareness, which has caught on as a phrase, and while it's been beneficial in the past, I think we need to move beyond that. I think, as I said earlier, there's such a large percentage of the population, comparatively speaking, that are autistic, and the autistic voice is such a powerful tool that people can use, that we need to work together to increase the knowledge of autism for example, schools, for retail places, for hospitality industry, for anywhere where you might encounter autistic people. There needs to be that knowledge of it, and need to work together. And it's a two-way street. We can't preach high and mighty from our autism knowledge. We need to take on board what other people say, and that's what we always endeavour to do.
Because it does sound as well from some of our audience here this afternoon, you know, have experienced kind of everyday kind of, I suppose, challenges, for want of a better phrase, in being able to access activities and things like that they're wanting to do. You know, Sarah's come back here and said, you know, that there just isn't a lot of activities that he's able to access, and that you know, when those activities that he is able to access, and maybe, as you say, just isn't that kind of level of understanding in terms of actually how to support somebody and their family, their broader family as well, who, you know, will be there as well. And Sarah, it sounds like you've been having a really tough time. And so, you know, if a listening ear would be helpful, please do contact our advice line. Ross and his colleagues are available through the advice line from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and are an excellent listening ear to you know, just be there and just listen to what's happening. And sometimes, Ross, it's not always about, you know, giving a solution, is it? It's not always about, you know, go here, go there. It's actually just having that space to talk it out, isn't it?
Some of our most important phone calls are us not saying very much, and just letting someone tell someone who will listen their situation. And if we can provide some support to that, we will always endeavour to do so. But sometimes, as you say, Joanna, it is just letting someone tell someone who will listen how much they're struggling.
Yeah, and also kind of empowering people, isn't it, around, you know, them being able to you know, collectively have a space where they can come up with a next step, or, you know, I don't want to use the word solution, because that, you know, it sounds very sort of tokenistic, but because it's not about that, is it? It's about figuring out what the next step is. And sometimes you need, you know, a safe space to kind of have the conversations, or just to be put on a slightly different pathway so that you can then move forward with your next steps. And I think one of our community advisors described it as, you know, I'm not in the same boat as you, but I'll bring my boat alongside you and row along for a little bit. And then, you know, when you're ready to row off yourself, I'll disappear, but I'm always going to be, you know, in the background somewhere. And I think that's very much the ethos of the advice line, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that analogy very much.
Yeah. It's a good one. When I heard it, it's, you know, it's
yeah,
not,
I mean,
and sometimes it, you know, we can, you know, provide an answer, but as you say, very much it's that kind of discussion space, isn't it? And that
yeah, I mean, we want to help autistic people and their families put in the steps they need to reach their potential. And sometimes they need a wee hand, sometimes they need to go the long way around, but we will always endeavour to help someone reach their potential.
You're a great bunch of colleagues to work alongside, and it's great for me to be able to work alongside you. I've got maybe one sort of further question here from Hannah. She says, hi Joanna and Ross, what are your thoughts on self-diagnosis? And I think you touched on this around identity just earlier, Ross. I've been referred for an autism assessment, but wary of saying and telling people that I am autistic. Is there any kind of advice for Hannah there?
I mean, if you've got to that stage, I don't think you'll have any problem getting a diagnosis eventually. But as we said, self-diagnosing or self-identifying, sorry, as autistic allows you to feel part of the community and to, I'll say, network with other autistic people and other autistic organisations, and just get some support that you maybe didn't know that you were entitled to or didn't even know you needed. And while me as an autistic person would always say get an official diagnosis when you can get one, it's not absolutely necessary to live your life as an autistic person if you don't have that bit of paper.
I suppose it's much more around you as a person, isn't it? And diagnosis can be very important to a great number of people, and and can be that next step on that journey of recognizing you and who you are, and it does in some cases does open up pathways for different types of support that may be needed. But it's about that kind of fair and equal access to diagnosis, isn't it? And it not being a battle. And I think Scotland has made that commitment to moving forward to fair and equal access to diagnosis. But in terms of and Hannah, I'm sorry you're feeling that way, that you don't feel confident to be able to tell people something that's probably very, very important to you, and absolutely should be recognised as such. And I think that that's around, sometimes the diagnosis can be helpful, can't it, in terms of being able to articulate maybe, your identity for some people.
Yes, exactly. It's a huge part of some people's identity. Some people think they're autistic but don't want the label, and that's also fine. But being autistic can be central, hence why Scottish Autism always uses autistic person rather than person with autism.
Absolutely, but and again, I suppose I'm sort of reading that and I'm thinking actually how much more work we have to do in terms of raising that I don't want to use the word awareness, because we should be thinking beyond that, but actually that's really a kind of, I suppose it's a call of we need to do more, don't we, so that people like Hannah aren't feeling like that something very, they feel that they can't express something very integral to who they are and their own identity. And I think there's work there to be done, isn't there? I'm just having a look here. We've got a question here from Mark. He says, "Hi, I was diagnosed a year ago, and he is looking to see whether or not he could access support from his local authority to help pay for services." And again, that's something that we're asked about quite often, isn't it? Yeah, in terms of how to go about getting an assessment of need and things like that, Ross. So what's our advice to Mark, I suppose, on
that? Let us know your local authority, because it can change so much with different areas. But
yeah, so
get in touch and we'll see what we can do, and we can offer advice and direction for you, whether that's directly or maybe through an advocate or through another organisation, depending on what's available in your area. Yeah,
great. So again, Mark, if you want to get in touch with us directly, then please do that. As again, the contact details are all is on the chat here. Or again, if you would like one of our advisors to give you a call back, then drop us a message and we'll arrange for that to happen. We're getting lots and lots of questions and comments in here, Ross, so I'm just going to scroll back, and again, lots and lots here around assessment and how to get an assessment, and the difficulties that people are facing in terms of accessing that assessment. And I definitely think it's something that we need to continue that dialogue and conversation on, isn't it? About how we ensure that people who want, I think your point was really, really well made there, in the sense of those people who want a diagnosis of autism or want to go down that process do have access to appropriate and accessible diagnosis. I think that's really important. Sorry, it's taking me a wee bit to kind of scroll back through here. So we've got lots and lots about assessment, and Hannah has come back saying thank you. And she says, I just feel without an official diagnosis, I won't be taken seriously by others. And again, Hannah, sometimes just having a space to talk through that as well can be hugely helpful. So please do get in touch and perhaps talk more directly with one of our community advisors about how you're feeling, and that, you know, how you can navigate through that kind of process of your identity and how important that is to you guys. So I think I have picked up, there are a couple of questions that have come in just at the end there, that one of our advisors will be in contact directly to talk about that, just due to the nature of what's been asked there. So, but don't worry, if we haven't got to your question on this afternoon's live event, we will come back to you directly. So please don't worry if we've not quite got there to that. So, so I suppose to, you know, kind of sum up and round up, Ross, it's the overarching message around this is let's keep talking, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep.
Let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep creating those spaces where we can listen to the autistic community, and thank you for sharing your own personal kind of thoughts and you know, and ideas for moving that forward. And I think that will be hugely useful and inspiring for a lot of our audience that have joined us this afternoon. But, you know, let's keep creating those spaces. Let's keep, you know, let's keep the doors open to educate each other, and let's, you know, let's keep that dialogue going. So thank you to everybody that has contacted us via the chat this afternoon. We really appreciate you joining us. There'll be more Advice Line Live Q&A events as the year goes on. So please do keep an eye on our Facebook pages for lots of future events that we're having on. And we are also got our conference running later this year. So again, have a look on our Facebook page or visit our website to find out full details of all the events that we've got coming up over the rest of this year. And again, thank you, Ross, for your time. Really appreciate it. I know how
No problem.
they are on the Advice Line. And thank you again to everybody that's joined us this lunchtime. And thanks and goodbye.
Bye.